Hey everybody, you know me waiting here with my seltzer for y'all. It's 5 o'clock, Wednesday. We're doing Hoerner happy hour on a Wednesday this week. I have some stuff to do tomorrow, so my last day at my full-time job. So gonna be a little bit of a busy day, so I want to do it today. We have, I think, 3 questions today. A few updates. Not much for me. You guys have been hearing a lot about what's going on behind the scenes over here. I'm going to have something special for you very soon that you all have been asking me for. I got a lot of emails responses to my email that I sent the other day, so just know that there's something coming for you. Keep an eye out on your inbox. If you're not already on my email list, go to katehoerner.com, get on that email newsletter. Lots of good stuff coming out later this week, so you'll definitely want to be in the know. But enough on that for now. I just want to dive right into the questions. As always, say hello when you guys hop on. Let me know who's listening. I can't see who comes on. And if you have questions, make sure you post them in the comments, and I will get to them. If I can't see them, I have trouble seeing stuff while we're on here. So if I can't see your comments while I'm talking, I'll always go back and read them later. So just comment your questions and I'll get to them. Our first question was from Angela, and she asked about cadence and watt displays and how you can instruct if you don't have a monitor that shows them. So most bikes now have some sort of monitor or display, but a lot of the older ones don't. So if you're teaching at a gym that has older bikes or maybe less expensive bikes, you might have this issue. There are a few different things that you can do here. Angela, you were talking about just telling people to turn the knob a quarter of the way, half the way, full turn, whatever. I have heard that a lot. I have heard a lot of instructors do that, even at some of the bigger studios. I wouldn't recommend it. Here's why. Everyone in your class is going to be different ages, different genders, different fitness levels. Maybe they're outdoor cyclists and they cycle every single day. They're super fit, male, huge guy, tons of muscle on him. Maybe next to him is a petite woman who's never been in a cycling class before. Maybe in front of him is a guy who weighs the exact same amount, but he has a good amount of body fat, and the guy behind him is mostly muscle, mostly lean. Even that, they are going to be completely different in what they consider, a certain level of resistance. So for the same reason you don't want to give a gear number, I think giving a turn or an amount of a turn is going to be very confusing for people, because they're not going to end up where they're supposed to be unless they're super experienced, but that's not really who you're talking to anyways. So I would highly suggest coming up with some sort of system. You can use RPE, rate of perceived exertion. A lot of people use a 1 to 10 scale. You could do that. I found that can be somewhat confusing for people. I used to do it and I stopped. I switched to a 1 to 5 scale for a little while because that seemed a little bit easier, but it just didn't stick. It still wasn't getting people to where they needed to be. So truthfully, I just got really, really good at describing it. Luckily, I've always been somewhere, for the most part, except for a couple places that had a display. Even way back when I started teaching, I was lucky enough to have really nice bikes. But if you don't have a display and you can't teach with, wattage, which is ideal, you can definitely just describe it as best as you can. Like when you're saying they're on a flat road, don't just say they're on a flat road. Describe what that feels like. Tell them, especially imagine a new person sitting down on that bike, you tell them to warm up on their flat road. What the heck does that mean? Well, tell them to close their eyes, hold on to that resistance knob, feel as if they're riding on a bike outside, starting to feel a little bit of road underneath them, but it's not challenging. They could hold it for forever, foreseeably, but it's not air. It's not empty. They're not pushing nothing. There's something there. Really describe it and get good at that descriptive language. And if you don't already have the free cues, you can go to my website and download them, katehoerner.com. Those will help you, especially the form-related ones. But really, we have to be able to describe it, because no matter what scale you're using, which everyone in here I'm sure uses something different. Maybe it's a 1 to 10 RPE, 1 to 5. Maybe you do give gear numbers. Maybe you give a gear range. Maybe you give a number of turns on your dial, whatever it is. On top of that, you have to be able to describe what it should feel like, because I think no matter what, people are going to do what they feel comfortable with. One of those things that I just listed for you, not everyone is going to stick to the acceptable method. That's fine, as long as you can describe it and you explain to your riders, hey, this gear range might not work for you. If you're a little bit fitter or you're a different size than me, you have to take into consideration that this really heavy hill that I'm about to describe to you might be a different gear number. And then you explain it and you tell them what it should feel like, because that really is what we want. Because those monitors, even the people that have them, maybe they're broken, you know? You never know. Maybe they're not calibrated. So they're helpful to an extent, but we still have to be able to describe what it's going to feel like. So I would practice that, you know? Hop on yourself and slowly increasing the gears and think to yourself, what does this feel like? Does it feel like I'm, you know, riding through mud? Does it feel like I'm riding through sand? What, you know, like things like that that will start to stick in your head, and then you can cue that way, and then people will get used to that. So hopefully that was helpful. I know it's not a great answer. I think that's that's why I had you watch that other video. I think it's one of the toughest things, cueing resistance. I truly do. I think it's one of the hardest things we have to do as instructors, other than writing our class profile and learning to execute it. So it takes some practice, but you'll get there. Maureen asked how to teach zones on a Keiser bike. That's a loaded question, because teaching zones in general is very difficult. I think if your class isn't used to zone riding, and I'm assuming there's heart zones, there's power zones, so I'm not totally sure what you're asking here, but I would say if you really want to teach with power, which is the ideal way on a Keiser bike, I believe, to teach with zones, I would recommend the spinning power course, or I think there's a stages one as well. I didn't take that one, but the spin power was great. So if you really want to learn to use power and you're able to use it in your classes, a lot of studios and gyms don't really teach that way, so it's hard to get people on board unless you teach multiple times a week. But if you do, and you have the ability to, and by the way, just us instructors, I recommend everyone take a power class, because it's really awesome for your own fitness. You will see some crazy changes if you learn how to use that power number. So I would recommend one of those courses. I can walk you through it if you want to. I'm happy to. I have a lot of experience with power as well, so let me know in a message if you would prefer that over a course. But either way, I think it's super valuable to learn, and a Keiser bike is a really powerful bike, and it's awesome that you get to teach on them, because they do have a lot of really helpful information. There is actually a Keiser app on your phone. There's one you can download it on your phone or an iPad. There's one for instructors and one for class members. So it walks you through how to find your functional threshold power, your FTP, and it can kind of guide you through a class. I've only used it a few times. I try not to use electronics in class, but I use it personally, and it's pretty awesome. So check out that Keiser app if you're able to teach on a Keiser. And last question. So Lynn was saying that she has a student who's been having complaints about lower back pain. She's tried kind of helping her with her bike setup, and that doesn't seem to work. So there's a lot of things here. Lower back pain is very common, especially with newer riders, and honestly with advanced riders who never learned how to properly ride. So bike setup is number one. So I would say every time she comes to your class, before you even get started, help her learn how to get the proper bike setup and really spend a lot of time on it. Make sure you set her up, then watch it a little bit and make sure everything looks okay, then maybe rejigger things, because there might be something that you're just not noticing that she's changing, or something that's hurting her a little bit. The other thing, I don't know what this person looks like, but I have found that clients that are a little bit overweight tend to have a lot more problems with this back pain. It usually has to do with a very weak core, or just a core that's not strong enough to hold up their body weight, to be completely honest. So I would suggest maybe some core training, some core work for them. But in addition to that, in your class, what you can do, and Lynn, I believe you're a Pilates instructor, right? So that would be awesome if you can get them to do that for core work. But I would also recommend that while they're in your class, you tell them before class, to take a break, maybe between every song, or maybe in the middle of songs as well, and sit up and kind of reposition and give themselves a break from the bending forward, because that does take a lot of core strength. We forget that because we're instructors, we're used to it. But most people that don't have that core strength, they end up leaning, we all know this, right? Leaning on the handlebars or rounding the back, and that's where that lower back pain comes in. So it really is a lot to do with form and just general core strength. So I would recommend some of those things to her or him. I think it was a female. And just suggest, taking breaks, and that it does take time. I'm also assuming that she's a relatively new rider, so it might just take some time to build that strength and build that comfort with the form of an indoor bike, because let's be honest, we don't really remember this, but it does take some time getting used to riding on an indoor bike. It feels weird at first, especially the length of the stride and the way that your body has to kind of position and hold itself up. It's not easy, and it's not intuitive. So we have to give our riders we can't give them the benefit of the doubt. We have to kind of baby them through this. So we can, if she's still having issues, come back, let me know. If she can get a little bit more specific with her pain, and you can explain it a little bit better, then maybe we can dive even deeper into some details. But frequent breaks, reassess her form and her bike setup consistently, suggest some core training and some core work, and see if you can get her to your Pilates class. All that will definitely help. And also check if she's had any injuries, or if she has any tightness in, the hip flexors, things like that. That will definitely cause some lower back pain. So make sure that she's doing some foam rolling and some stretching. That will kind of be, retroactive, because at that point she's already a little bit out of whack, a little injured, but that might be causing it as well. So keep all those things in mind and try to keep an eye on her and see how things are going. Report back to me, let me know. All right, guys, I think that's all we got for today. Again, I can't see any of the comments, so I'm sorry if anyone asks a question. I'll make sure I check them, and I'll either answer it in the comments or I'll answer it next week at Hoerner Happy Hour. And for everyone who's interested in my upcoming training, make sure you check your emails later this week, early next week. Lots of good stuff coming at you. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day. Happy hump day. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.